day 14 of the Bridechilla 30 Days of Wedding Planning, and today is a tricky one. It is how to deal with people who think they're coming to your wedding but actually in fact aren't. I'm Alicia. I am the host of the Bridechilla podcast. It's a wedding planning podcast. It's sassy, it's full of swears and lots of silliness, but also very informative. I'm also the founder of Bridechilla, the movement, and the mother of dragons. I'm not the mother of dragons. Guest lists, easy for some people, really hard for others. There's a lot to say about the guest list, and I will talk more about it in the future. But I wanted to talk about people who assume that they're going to be invited to your wedding and aren't, because it can be a totes awful moment. It can also be very empowering, but it can be very uncomfortable for a lot of people, and then they feel obliged to then go, okay, you are invited. You asked. When that is not the way I want you to come out of this short episode feeling. I want you to feel like you are making the right decisions, that you are inviting the right people in your life. And if people have the balls and the audacity to assume or presume they are coming to your wedding, then it sucks to be you and sucks to be them because they're not coming to your wedding. Sometimes people assume they're invited to things because lots of other people have big ass events where they literally invite everyone they've ever met because they don't know how to not invite people. I talk a lot on the podcast about obligation guests and ridding yourself of people that don't make you happy at your wedding. There is no way on earth that I want you to turn up on your wedding day to this amazing event and have to fake smile because you see someone across the way that you don't really want to be there, or that you're like, meh is not a feeling that you should be feeling if you're a Bridechilla or groomchilla on your wedding day. So the question is, I suppose, how do you tell them they're not coming? Sometimes people just come out with it. A lot of times now you'll see people screen grabbing people's conversations and putting it on the internet. I don't necessarily agree with that. I think that's a bit rude. But the idea that people have the balls, and this is so not in my personality to ever assume I was going to be invited to anything, but have the balls to text message saying, oh, I haven't received my invitation. When is it coming? ? Or I've heard that other people are being invited. I haven't heard it. What's happening? I don't know what's going on. Or work friends saying, I can't wait to get drunk at your wedding. No one speaks like that. And it can be really challenging. Now, you could face it a couple of ways. You could just have some real lady balls and say, listen, I'm sorry, we're having a smaller wedding, or it's an intimate thing, or we've got a limited amount of places and you didn't make the cut. You can't say that. You can, but don't. But say, I'm so sorry. We'd love to celebrate with you at another time. Let's go and have a drink or something. But the wedding, unfortunately, it's not happening. It's also challenging when there are big family members, like the family tree that expands, the second cousins and stuff. Family do assume they're going to be invited to everything, and working with families can be really challenging. And I'm not going to say I'm going to solve all your problems in a 5-minute video right now, but it is important to set some boundaries. And that means if you are only going to have your close relatives there, then make sure that's the rule that you're sticking with. If it's very hard when you go, I'm going to invite this second cousin, but not that second cousin. And yeah, you can make it work, especially if this second cousin is a much better friend and you see them regularly, and this second cousin is someone that lives in another state and you don't even know their kids' names. A lot easier to deal with. But when you start segregating and excluding, it can be challenging. And sometimes it's good to just put a blanket sort of rule up and say, you know what, we're having an intimate wedding, or it's family only, or only close friends. And a lot of the time when you say it, people get it. And a lot of the time people don't really realise potentially how rude the assumption or the way they say it could be construed. And it's maybe a flippant remark that then gnaws away at you because you're like, oh my God, they're not on the list. They think they're on the list. How am I going to get out of this? When actually the best way to deal with the most uncomfortable situations is sometimes just kapowie, just hit it straight away and go, hey, Brian from work, you're great. I really enjoy what we've got going on here. But Jonathan and I have decided we've only got 50 people at our wedding and we've got a lot of relatives. But it would be amazing if we could celebrate with you beforehand. Maybe we could have a dinner or not. Brian, you're not coming. Look, it's challenging. I do talk a lot on the podcast about the guest list, obligation guests, how to overcome these situations in a lot more detail. Also in the Bridechilla Survival Guide, my book, I have a lot of, I've got like 3 chapters on who you want to be there to celebrate with you, who you want to be in your memories of the day. And the best piece of advice my husband Rich and I were given before our wedding is that your guests should be a part of your future, not just your past. And that's a really important thing to remember. Don't just be inviting people out of obligation. Don't be inviting someone from college or university that you haven't seen for years, but you had this drunk promise that you'd both be at each other's weddings. And if they don't have meaning in your life anymore, don't invite them. There you go. Did that help you? I hope so. If you're enjoying this and you have a friend that might like to learn or to feel a bit more empowered about their wedding planning, then recommend Bridechilla to them. I produce a new episode of the Bridechilla podcast every Monday, and the Bridechilla community on Facebook is a growing, fabulous place to be, full of optimistic, interesting people who are planning their wedding and maintaining their chill all together. Thank you so much for watching. I'm really enjoying doing these videos, and I hope you're gaining some insight and value out of them too. If you are enjoying it, spread the word, buy a book, and listen to the podcast. Until tomorrow, happy days.